Welcome to MXF. I am your host, Katie, on the Mrs. X Finance channel, and today what we will be discussing is 5 frugal living tips from the 1950s that still work today. Let's jump in. Number 1, cook and eat smart at home. So one of the most impactful frugal living strategies from the 1950s was to cook homemade meals. So by preparing meals from scratch with whole ingredients, it was a lot more cost effective than relying on prepackaged or restaurant foods. In addition to that, this is also more significant impacts on your health. So home cooked meals allow you for better nutrition and portion control by controlling the quality and quantity of the ingredients. So the smart eating habit from the 1950s was also to get creative with leftovers. So instead of them throwing out their Sunday dinner, they would repurpose it Monday as Monday's hash. I'm not too sure what that is, or soup on Tuesday. So what this did is it maximized their food waste and stretched their grocery budget even further. In addition to that, a lot of the homes in the 50s would also have gardens, which produce fresh, affordable produce, which reduced food expense even further. So I would like to know, do any of you actually have any gardens at home? And the second one, I want to know if any of you have good recipes for leftovers instead of discarding them so we can start stretching our budget further. Number 2, develop smart shopping habits. Frugal shoppers in the 1950s knew the importance of planning and avoiding impulse purchases. They would create detailed shopping lists based on their household needs and stick to them diligently, a strategy that can be equally effective in today's world of endless consumer temptation. Another shopping habit from the past was buying non-perishable items in bulk when they were on sale. I'm a huge fan of doing this now. By stocking up on essentials like canned food, rice, or toilet paper when the prices were low, 1950s families could save money in the long run. While we now have the added advantage of price comparisons, websites, and apps, the principle of seeking out the best deal remains unchanged. And again, I'm going to go back to the price matching. If you find your grocery store does price matching, start taking advantage of it. Once you get into the swing of things, it does not take long. If you want to hear more about the price matching piece, please comment below, and that's something that we can get into. Number 3, embrace DIY repairs. So in the 1950s, many households relied on their own skills and resources to maintain possessions and other living spaces. One common practice was sewing and maintaining clothes rather than immediately replacing them when damaged. By learning basic sewing techniques, individuals could extend the life of their garments and save money on clothing expenses. Similar, people in the 50s often took on minor home and auto repairs themselves instead of hiring a professional to do these everyday issues. While some tasks are best left to the trained professionals, developing a foundation of understanding of maintenance can help identify problems early, prevent costlier repairs down the line, and build self-reliance. In the 1950s, you also saw a strong culture of upcycling, where household items were repurposed or given new life instead of discarding them. This aligned well with today's emphasis on stability and waste reduction. So again, I think DIY and repairs, I think that can be really beneficial in a household. However, if for the DIY, basically, this is using what you already have on hand. It's not going out and purchasing everything to make a DIY project, if that makes sense. So that was the whole point of using the DIY back then. It's not what you see today where people will go to the dollar store to make their own DIY stuff. So can you? Yes, you can. But essentially, if there's something out there that you do really like, instead of DIYing it, price compare it to see how much it's going to cost you time and money to make it versus just purchasing that item outright, because chances are it's probably a little bit cheaper to actually buy the thing that you actually want instead of going around to X amount of stores trying to DIY this purchase. Moving on. Number 4, conserving energy. So I still use this very much today, but nonetheless, here we go. So back in the 1950s, they did used to really conserve energy. So this can help obviously reduce our carbon footprint and utility bills in today's world. One of the most common strategy was to use natural methods for climate control, such as opening windows for ventilation in the summer and using thick curtains for insulation in the winter. Now, I don't know if this is right, but I remember I went on a tour years ago and it was in like a castle. And that's what they said that they would use for assistance for insulation was thick curtains. So I was thinking to myself, is that why curtains are actually like a thing now? So I just thought that was really interesting. Anyways, moving on. So they also would turn off the lights and appliances when they were not in use back in the day. I do that all the time. I'm constantly running around the house, turning off all the lights if they are not in use. So this is a relevant practice that everybody should be using today because A, not only is it good for the earth, but B, it's really good for your wallet. So keep those lights and everything off when you're not using them. Along with, they would also conserve water at some points in the 50s. It looks like here they were very diligent and prompt about fixing any leaks and not wasting water. And they would use water as they needed to wash dishes or water their gardens. So I remember when I was growing up, we used to have watering vans all the time to conserve water. So a lot of the times you could use the water for, your personal needs, but they would just kindly ask that you didn't water the grass. Number 5, perhaps the most significant lesson from the 1950s frugality is the importance of adapting a mindset that's prioritizing financial responsibility and contentment with what we have. Because nowadays, enough is just never enough. People in the 50s were more likely to distinguish between the wants versus the needs, focusing on their spending on essential items and experiences rather than discretionary purchases. The mindset also extends to entertainment, with families opting for simple, low-cost activities like game nights, picnics, community events instead of expensive outings. By finding joy in the simple things and prioritizing financial stability, 1950s households were able to build a stronger foundation for long-term economic security. By consistently saving a portion of your income and investing wisely can help us weather economic challenges and achieve financial goals. So thank you all so much for listening. I am Katie on MXF, the Mrs. X Finance channel. Cheers into the next one.